that. The main thing for the Lakers is we just can't depend on those two guys anymore. We need a third scorer. We need somebody who can get us 15 to 18 points every single game. And that's
this team, their championship window, they did something Magic and the Lakers never did. They won the championship. They were feeling themselves.
The tension around the Los Angeles Lakers didn't come from a loss, a trade, or even a headline performance. It came from something much more uncomfortable. Two completely different voices in basketball media finally saying the same brutal thing out loud. When Stephen A. Smith and Magic Johnson start agreeing on anything about the Lakers, it usually means the situation has moved past opinions into reality. And this time, the truth they're both circling is simple, direct, and a little uncomfortable for Lakers fans to hear. This team is not where it's supposed to be. The conversation didn't start in a friendly tone either. It started with frustration. Stephen A. Smith, known for turning every Lakers topic into a high-intensity breakdown, pointed out what he sees as structural inconsistency inside the organization. Magic Johnson, someone who doesn't usually add fuel to public criticism unless he feels strongly about it, echoed similar concerns in his own way. Different styles, different backgrounds, same conclusion. The Lakers are underperforming relative to expectations, and the margin for patience is shrinking fast.
At the end of the day, here's the reality. Lakers gonna have to make a change. Now, whether it's a trade or whatever, or the change of the coach.
At the center of this discussion is the constant pressure surrounding the Lakers' identity. This isn't a rebuilding franchise. This is a win-now organization built around championship expectations, media attention, and superstar legacy. When the Lakers struggle, it doesn't register as a normal slump. It becomes a crisis narrative instantly. And that's exactly why Stephen A. and Magic agreeing carries weight, because both understand that in Los Angeles, excuses don't survive long. A lot of the frustration ties back to consistency. One night, the Lakers look like a contender, moving the ball, defending with intensity, and executing late-game possessions with discipline. The next night, they look disjointed, slow, and disconnected offensively. That inconsistency is what both analysts pointed out, even if they framed it differently. Stephen A. emphasizes urgency and accountability. Magic emphasizes basketball fundamentals and leadership gaps. But both arrive at the same destination. The Lakers are not stable enough yet.
They can't exploit it. The Lakers' weaknesses, they ain't got bigs. If this was early 2000s and Tim Duncan and Shaquille O'Neal were just walking around, Amari Stoudemire walking around, I would care. If it was late 90s and Charles Barkley, Hakeem, Karl Malone were walking around, it would matter. But the biggest weakness for the Lakers, they do not have bigs, thus they do not have depth at big, but it's irrelevant because that's not the day and age of the NBA currently.
The statistical picture reinforces that concern. The Lakers have shown stretches of strong defensive ratings, but their offensive rhythm often fluctuates depending on matchups and spacing. Turnovers in key moments, inconsistent three-point shooting, and uneven bench production have created a pattern where momentum rarely lasts more than a few games. That kind of volatility is dangerous for a team expected to compete at the highest level. And when legends like Magic Johnson highlight those issues, it becomes more than commentary. It becomes warning signs. This is where the narrative starts escalating beyond simple critique, because when two high-profile voices agree on the same brutal truth, it forces everyone else to re-examine assumptions. Are the Lakers truly a contender, or are they a team living off reputation, name value, and short bursts of good basketball? That question is now sitting at the center of NBA discourse, and there's no easy answer.
Yeah, I wish we would have seen how this team would have looked, but now they have some decisions to make. I think they need some bigs. They need some shooting. They need to get younger. They need to get a little more athletic on the wing, on the perimeter, defensive-wise. So
here's the part nobody is talking about. The Lakers' biggest issue isn't talent, it's alignment. On paper, the roster has enough experience, star power, and defensive capability to compete with anyone in the league. But alignment, meaning chemistry, roles, and identity, is still unstable. Players don't always know where the rhythm is coming from. Lineups shift. Offensive priorities change depending on who is hot that night. That lack of consistency creates confusion, and confusion leads to inconsistency. Stephen A. Smith has repeatedly emphasized urgency, especially when discussing the Lakers' championship window. His argument is rooted in timing. With aging stars and limited prime years left for key players, every season carries higher stakes. Magic Johnson, from a different perspective, focuses more on execution and leadership on the court. He's pointed out that great Lakers teams historically had clear identities. This version of the team, in his view, still hasn't fully defined what it wants to be. The contrast between expectation and reality is where frustration builds. The Lakers are treated like a championship contender in every preseason prediction, every media segment, every fan discussion. But when the season unfolds, they often sit in a space between contender and inconsistent playoff team. That gap is what Stephen A. keeps attacking, and what Magic subtly acknowledges. The Lakers are not closing that gap fast enough. The coaching and system questions also feed into this debate. While adjustments have been made, critics argue that the team still relies heavily on individual talent rather than consistent system execution. When stars carry heavy offensive loads, role players can become inconsistent and rotations can lose rhythm. That creates stretches where the team looks elite and stretches where it looks completely disorganized. And in the NBA, that kind of inconsistency usually separates true contenders from teams that only look like contenders on paper. Here's where it gets dangerous, because once expectation and reality diverge for too long, narratives start to harden. In a market like Los Angeles, patience doesn't exist in large supply. The media amplifies every slump. Fans analyze every lineup decision. Analysts start asking structural questions instead of performance questions. And suddenly, a team that was supposed to be contending starts getting treated like a team that needs fixing instead of refining. Magic Johnson's involvement in this conversation is especially important because of his history with the franchise. He doesn't speak casually about the Lakers. When he points out issues, it usually comes from a place of understanding championship standards. He knows what elite Lakers basketball looks like: fast execution, clear leadership, and consistent intensity. When he sees deviation from that standard, he doesn't hesitate to say it. And that makes his agreement with Stephen A. even more impactful. The emotional layer of this situation also matters. The Lakers are not just any other NBA team. They're a global brand with decades of championship history. That legacy creates pressure that affects everything from player expectations to media coverage. Every loss feels bigger, every inconsistency feels louder, and every criticism carries more weight. That's the environment this current roster operates in, and it magnifies every flaw. Another key point both analysts indirectly highlight is leadership structure. The Lakers have star power, but leadership consistency fluctuates depending on availability, matchup, and game flow. When leadership is not clearly defined on the court, late-game execution often suffers. Close games become harder to close, momentum swings become harder to control, and in playoff-level basketball, those small gaps become critical. The fan reaction to this agreement between Stephen A. Smith and Magic Johnson has been split. One group sees it as confirmation of what they already felt, that the Lakers are not meeting expectations. Another group believes the criticism is exaggerated and ignores the natural ups and downs of an NBA season. But the fact that both a modern media voice and a franchise legend are pointing in the same direction makes it harder to dismiss. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The Lakers aren't just being evaluated against the league. They're being evaluated against their own history. That changes everything. A normal team can survive inconsistency without panic. The Lakers can't, because every version of Lakers basketball is measured against championship eras. That historical standard creates pressure that no analytics chart can fully capture. Player performance also becomes part of this larger narrative. When the team struggles, individual performances are dissected more intensely. Stars are asked to do more, role players are questioned for consistency, and every lineup decision becomes a debate topic. That constant scrutiny creates an environment where improvement is harder to isolate because everything is judged in real time under a microscope. One of the most interesting aspects of Stephen A. and Magic agreeing is that they represent two different eras of basketball thinking. Stephen A. represents modern media urgency, fast reactions, immediate accountability, and constant narrative pressure. Magic represents championship-era perspective, system execution, leadership clarity, and team identity. When both perspectives converge, it usually means the issue is visible from every angle. As the season continues, the debate will only grow louder. Every winning streak will be tested against skepticism, every losing stretch will reinforce criticism, and every adjustment will be analyzed through the lens of whether the Lakers are truly building towards a championship identity or simply cycling through inconsistent phases. At the end of the day, the most important question isn't whether Stephen A. Smith and Magic Johnson are right in isolation. It's whether their shared conclusion reflects a deeper truth about the Lakers' current identity. Because when two completely different basketball voices arrive at the same brutally honest assessment, the conversation stops being about opinion and starts becoming about reality the organization has to confront sooner than later.